Good morning. Very nice to see you all again. Now we're going to do something extremely fun.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get.
I think I'm having what the Germans call a Schadengasm.
Where do they teach you to talk like this? In some Panama City sailor want a hump bar? Or is this getaway day and your last shot at his whiskey? Sell crazy someplace else. We're all stocked up here.
I believe it or not, I watch my words very carefully. There are those that think I'm a very stable genius, okay?
Hey everybody, welcome. It's a brand new day. Waking up this weekend has been such a weight lifted off everything. So big news happening here. Our 2-year-long election is finally over, and we got some new president and vice president coming in. So we're pretty excited about that. Now, I don't want to make my stream overly political. We'll discuss politics a bit today because it's like going on right now, and we're really happy with how things have transpired because it's just been so stressful for 4 years. And I'll welcome some political discussion in the chat if you want. I just ask people keep it polite, not be nasty, please don't try to spread conspiracy theories. If you're nasty, if you spread false news, Debbie will delete that comment. We just don't want the tone to get too harsh. We're trying to move on and heal and learn to work with each other again, because there's a lot of people in this country, almost half, that voted for that guy, and there's nothing we can do about that. There's something that we need to address. I don't know. Anyway, but yes, so we've got a new people coming in, and it's time to do new caricatures. I actually did new caricatures of Joe and Kamala just yesterday. I spent all day doing it, actually, just because that's just how I chose to spend my day. I'm like, okay, topic for the live stream. We didn't know for sure if the election would be wrapped up when it was, so I didn't really prepare. So yesterday I spent my time coming up with an illustration of Joe and Kamala. And unlike some of the other work I've done here, this is actually going to be a full, editorial style illustration. If you are a caricature artist, an illustrator, and you want to get work doing print work, doing stuff for magazines and newspapers, you have to have work in your portfolio that can tell a story, that can show an editorial point of view. And if you don't have an assignment from an art director, you just create your own assignment. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about coming up with the idea, generating the concepts, refining the concepts. Even though it's already done, I'll just chat about it while I'm actually painting. So I'm going to paint today, but I do have a time-lapse to show you of the drawing process. But let's say hello to everyone. We got Sargon from Uzbekistan. Hello. And Subodh and Antonio. Good to see you. Hi, Dorian. Eric. Yes, I am. We are happy. Alan. Hey, good to see you. Carlton. Hey. All right. So, yeah, what else is going on? Not much, I guess. Let's just get right into the art. I got my picture here. And, where actually is it? It's down here. So this is what I came up with for the sort of the changing of the guard picture, so to speak. It's just sort of commemorating the victory and just talking about the basic concept here. Trump got elected for his populist message. One of his main things was about draining the swamp, because Washington is full of like murkiness and backroom deals, whatever. Everyone's corrupt, and he was going to fix that, which is, I find, just hilarious, because going into it, I knew this. I could tell he's a failed real estate developer, TV show host, and con man. And like the idea that this guy was going to drain the swamp instead of bringing his own brand of corruption, which he did. He brought all his corruption with him. The presidency doesn't make you a better person. It reveals who you are. And, with a bright spotlight shining on your finances, on your personal backstory, I mean, all of that stuff comes to light. So anyway, so I thought about the idea. I wanted to take something that Trump had said and sort of use it against him. There's all sorts of images that came to mind about swamp draining. And I thought, okay, now that the Kamala and Joe are in, they'll do their version of that. And instead of actually a swamp, I thought about like a toilet, like flushing the turd. That's like one of the things a lot of people on social media said. I didn't want it to be too graphic, obviously, because, it's stuff I want to show in my portfolio and share with all you guys. So I just came up with the idea of sort of a drain plug, and there's a nasty, hairy, golden-haired clog in the drain, and Joe and Kamala are going to fix it. So that's just where this idea essentially came from. So I took this idea, that populist slogan that Trump was so fond of, and sort of turned it on its head and used it against him. Hoisted by his own petard, they say. And that's one of the things you can do when you're thinking of how to do a editorial illustration, that you were making up the concept yourself. Use something from the person's own past, use something about their own character weaknesses or perceived character weaknesses, and let your own opinion shine through on it. I mean, it's your turn to let your voice speak, to let your voice be heard. When you're working for an art director, you might have to work for magazines that, maybe you don't agree with. Maybe they have a different editorial point of view, and that's fine. I've done illustrations for conservative publications as well as liberal, and mostly they're just neutral. I haven't done too many political type illustrations, but yeah, so and there's usually a lot of ammunition that you can draw upon and use against a politician, because they speak, especially someone like Trump, speaks in such vivid metaphors and languages. And you want to think about those things in terms of the symbols and what they mean, and what other things can be used as metaphors and symbols in your own drawing. Well, drains, unplugging, unclogging. So this naturally came to mind. So, and a drain clog is something that's usually a little bit dirty, and you don't want to mess with it because it's just like nasty. So you call in the plumbers. You call Joe the plumber and Kamala the plumber, I guess. Anyway, again, I don't want to editorialize my own personal beliefs too much here. I'm just talking about my thought process with creating this individual illustration, and how I came about it. Thank you, Alan. Hey, Ernesto, good to see you. You made it to a live stream. Awesome. So, yeah, the picture I was using for Joe here is the one that you see in the upper left. And that is basically all I used to draw this. I had my old image of Kamala, as you guys may recall from a previous live stream. This is the drawing that I did of her a few weeks ago. And I had actually done a full painting with like a high contrast color situation. but I decided I couldn't use that. I couldn't use that same digital quick painting that I did because the values and shadows on her face wouldn't match Joe's in this picture. However, the original source photo that I used for Kamala for this drawing looks like, where did it go? Everything all hidden here. Was this one here. So the shadows here are very diffused. It's outdoors on a cloudy day, and the same thing with Joe, I guess. There's no real strong shadows. So I think this reference photo of Joe and this one of Kamala sort of go good together. There's no conflicting shadows. There's no high contrast shadows like I had in the original Kamala painting. So I'm going to need to start from scratch with Kamala's face. And, you know, this is one of those things, I'm not going to finish this today. You know that. But I'm going to see if I can get a good start on it. And hopefully Debbie will be in here soon and can start helping me with the chat. As usual, just please let me know any questions you have about the process. If you want to talk politics, that's fine too. Again, we'll just try to keep it civil. If you happen to disagree, that's okay. I welcome everybody, but I just don't want things to get too heated. All right, so I'm going to go to my round quick painter brush, and I'm going to lay an undertone underneath everything here to unify the picture. It's actually in grayscale mode. I need to convert this. I'll just convert it to RGB. I sometimes work in CMYK if I'm working for a publisher, but it's no big deal to convert something from RGB to CMYK. It's just a flick of a switch. But so I want to get sort of a neutral, maybe slightly warm underpainting underneath Joe and Kamala. Maybe a little bit lighter. To just act as my starting ground here. And I'll try to do this part pretty quickly because it's kind of boring to watch. And I'm just going to work against this white background. That's just, you know, an easy solution for most illustrations when you want the viewer to just focus on the main action. There's no need for an environment. I mean, I could, but it's not important to the story here, I don't think. I don't need to show that they're in a swamp or that they're in a bathtub, you know, or a tiled floor in a bathroom. You know, it just doesn't matter. The only thing that matters are the key components. It's like I like to think back to like how, you know, Rockwell would do an illustration. He's, you know, is a major influence on me. And so many of his paintings were just the main figures against a white background because that's all you really need. That's all you need to tell the story. And it's graphically, it can look really, really, it has a lot of impact to have dark silhouetted figures against a bright background of negative space. If you did an entire background of, you know, realism and interior scenes or landscapes, that's fine, but it adds a lot of complication to the image and doesn't necessarily help anything. There might be situations where the setting is important, of course, like if it's part of the, you know, part of the editorial statement that it's important to show where they're at, yeah, but I find it rarely is that important. And it saves time. So I'm just rearranging some of my other photos here so I can see the chat. Alan says, you cannot see Kamala without thinking of Maya Rudolph. And curiously, Maya does her impression in Saturday Night Live with Jim Carrey as Joe Biden. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you know, when I mentioned this, I think when I was doing this Kamala caricature, I kept on seeing Maya Rudolph as well. Not that I thought my picture looked like her, but it just goes to show like a really good impressionist can leave a mark, leave an impression. And it might subconsciously influence what you do too, because the impressionist who's doing basically a visual and audio caricature of their subject, you know, they might do mannerisms that they pick up on from the subject that maybe I never noticed before. You know, Trump has a lot of mannerisms, the way he holds his hands when he talks and makes the little okay symbols and points when he talks. That's something that the you know, the impressionists really pick up on. And if me as a regular viewer of, you know, the original politician didn't pick up on that, I would definitely see it when the impressionist does. So that's like what an impressionist does, like when you see him on Saturday Night Live, is like what a caricature artist does. They're doing a simplified, exaggerated rendition of that person just with their medium, which happens to be acting. And I'm just doing it visually with pictures and lines and shapes. Okay, I may not do every single bit here right now. I mean, I think I'll just cover Joe and Kamala and maybe our big drain plug here. Because I know I'm not going to get to like a lot of this extra detail during this stream. Although, I may try to block it all in, even if I can't render and finish it. So this is just, again, on a layer underneath the line art layer, so that I don't cover up my lines. And maybe I'll go ahead and add a little bit of value down here to the drain plug area. There's a big tuft of golden hair stuck in the drain there. When Debbie saw this, she was kind of grossed out, even though it's, it's not too realistically depicted just yet, but anytime there's loose, squiggly hairs coming out of a drain, I think it kind of evokes a visceral reaction. We actually, I think, have Debbie joining us now, and I have a fun treat for you guys. I know sometimes it's hard to hear Debbie when she asks questions because the mic setup we had wasn't that great, and I always had problems with it. If she's too close to me, you pick up both inputs, and it creates an echo. But we got a really good mic, well, a decent mic anyway, and I think she's here now. Why don't you say hi, Debbie?
Hello.
Let me know if you can hear her all right.
I'm here. I had to eat breakfast first. I know, a little late, but I'm slow.
That's all right. Actually, I guess I will finish filling in this the underpainting here. Doesn't take too long. It's just a necessary step because now I can actually, if I want, I can use these as a selection. I could just select this entire everything that's basically painted on this layer and use the magic wand tool to select it to create a channel, an alpha channel, and I can use that to constrain my paint strokes on the subsequent layers of painting. So why don't I go ahead and do that now? I'll just hit, actually I don't even have to hit the magic wand tool, I'll just hit Control A, and that selects everything, the entire layer. But what I do just as a quick shortcut is I'll just nudge the arrow tool down and then back up. And that just constrains it to the actual painted pixels. So now I can't paint outside of this area here. See, it's just what's selected. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as a selection right now. Go ahead and select, save selection, and I'll just call it, figures. And just so these marching ants aren't bothering me, I'm just going to hide that layer. I could also just lock transparent pixels. However, I'm going to move to a layer above this later on, and that won't apply, or that wouldn't work. So I'll just keep that as an active selection right now, but I'm going to hide it by hitting Control H. Eric, you say the sound is a little wonky, but you hear her? Why don't you say some other stuff, Debbie? I mean, you should be about within a foot or two, maybe a little far.
I don't think anyone had problems before, right? It's just your standard for sound quality is very high.
Yeah. It's I have a really, really good microphone, and the one I got Debbie's really cheap, but it works. So hers might sound a little tinny, not quite as bassy, but
Plus, I have a little bit of a morning voice, I guess. I kind of slept late, so the sound quality might just be me, but that's okay.
Okay, so I'm still in the underpainting layer, and I'm going to just wash in some colors here. I'm looking at my photo reference of Joe and Kamala, and you can't see her right now. She's off screen, but...
Did you see that comment? There's reverb.
Is there reverb? Because I tested this ahead of time, and there was no reverb when I tested it.
That's okay. I just won't talk. It's fine with me.
Well, is there reverb when I talk? Because that might be a problem.
I can go check.
So is the reverb on me, or is it on Debbie, or is it on both of us? Hey, Alfred, thanks for joining.
Sounds fine to me.
Well, they're saying there's reverb. Oh, it's just on Debbie? Oh, did you turn the echo on yours? There's an echo switch on yours.
I haven't touched that.
Okay. Well, we couldn't try moving the mic further from me like we did, but what?
Just don't worry about it.
Well, I don't want echo is very unsettling to listen to when it's on a for an hour and a half. Here,
Maybe I'll try whispering. Is this better?
That's probably kind of creepy. Here, let me silence your mic, and so if you want to move it back, people won't hear you like shuffling and moving it back. And just you can pick up the whole, pick up the whole stand. Yeah. Go farther away from me. A what? Oh. Well, you didn't want me to get one. We thought the distance would work. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so let me turn yours back on here. Are you ready? Okay, say something, Debbie.
Hello, I'm in the hallway now. Hopefully the reverb is less.
Yeah, let us know if Debbie has an echo.
No one really cares. Everyone's here to watch you draw, so it's okay.
Well, it's one of those things that kind of bugs me, like later when I replay it, if there's an echo the whole time, it's just.
I know. See, Eric liked my whisper.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one of those channels where I just whisper the whole time.
You could try that.
So I did have a question for you, though.
What's that?
Earlier you mentioned that when you work for publications, you usually work in CMYK, but since you're not, you're just doing RGB. Do you ever switch? Like if you're drawing for a publication, do you ever start in RGB just to save some processing time or memory?
No,
and
it's
then
not.
Switch to CMYK.
I've never noticed a real difference in speed or brush rendering time or anything like that. The file sizes are a little larger when you work in CMYK, but it's I think it's negligible if you have a decent system. But if I am going to use, if I know for sure it's going to print, I will work in CMYK just because I don't want to accidentally pick colors during my painting process that are out of the print gamut. As you are aware of those things, being used to working for a printer. Because yeah, you'll get warning messages on certain colors that are too intense when you're working in CMYK than if working in RGB.
But if you get that warning, you just don't use it.
Well, yeah, but I don't always keep my eye out for the warning.
Ah, gotcha.
If you're in an RGB space, does the RGB space in the color picker change when you're actually in a RGB document versus CMYK?
Yes.
Okay, so it won't even give you if you're in a if you're in a CMYK space.
So.
It won't even give you the option to use colors that are out of gamut. Is that?
I think you can set it that way.
Okay.
Definitely. But now that I'm thinking, I don't know. I know you do get a warning if it's out of the color gamut, which means it just won't print in CMYK. But I don't know if I only get that when I'm in RGB or CMYK. Good question.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that. But yeah, if you're painting and it's for a professional use, guys, you should definitely keep aware of the idea of what color gamuts are. And if you try to pick a color from the color picker and it's outside, you'll see this little, you can see on mine, I get a little exclamation point here on the far left. That means this bright orange will not print, at least even in this RGB space, I guess. Or at least, I don't know, I guess maybe it's sensing what standard print colors are. I mean, this should be fine if I just want to display this for web use. I can pick that orange color. It should look totally accurate to, on different people's monitors.
Well, it knows by the mix, by the CMYK mix, whether or not that color can be created with CMYK.
Yes. Okay. So even in RGB mode, the color picker window is it's just sort of looking out for you. It sort of has your back, I guess. It'll just sort of warn you, and you can try to use it or not. But if you do use it, you'll just those colors just won't print the way you see them on the screen. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, it just won't be as accurate as you want. Does that sound right?
Yeah. So are you still on the same layer?
Yeah, I'm on the underpainting layer still.
So brave.
Yeah, it's just like watercoloring right now. Let's see, what color should the plug be? I think they're usually like sort of like a light beige color.
No.
What?
Plungers?
No, not the plunger, the plug.
Oh,
the
sorry.
drain plug.
Yeah, usually for a bathtub they're white.
Like off-white or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
A crew.
Yeah.
Eggshell.
The plungers are usually, well, a lot of days they're like black now, but rust color or red or maroon is sort of a good plunger color.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just sort of getting in the neighborhood here. I'm not being too accurate.
But maybe on the plunger you wouldn't want to use red.
Why not?
Because it symbolizes Republican.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it's really off red. I was gonna have Trump's tie, be the Republican red here. And Trump is very fond of the red ties. All right, and Joe, he'll get a cornflower blue tie. I already decided.
Why cornflower blue?
I don't know, because I see him wear it a lot.
Oh, I thought maybe it brought out his eyes. What color are his eyes anyway?
I do not know.
I don't either.
Okay, just about finished the underpainting here. Let's see. So he's holding this pull chain, and that'll be sort of a silver or a chrome type color. And what else here? I guess I'll make the drain plug will also be, the rim of the drain will be silvery chrome as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the opaque layer above the line art layer. And I guess I'll start with Uncle Joe here, because he's just all right there. And I haven't painted him yet, so I painted Kamala a few weeks ago.
Did you call him Uncle Joe?
Uncle Joe!
Why?
He seems very avuncular, doesn't he?
What a clur?
He seems avuncular.
Okay.
That means being or like an uncle.
I have never heard that term before.
Oh,
Where did you get that from?
I don't know. My vast life experience, I guess.
Is that a crossword puzzle answer?
Sure. Probably. I mean, I don't think I got it from my crosswords.
It's just not a word that's used in common conversation or everyday TV or anything like that.
I hear it, actually, from time to time on TV. Maybe because I know it. Like, I make note of it.
Maybe it's just me. Jim Sketch Testing does point out that if you wanted to see how it will print in CMYK, you can just use the overprint preview and it will show you.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look at that. I'm not quite sure what that is.
Yeah, it's just a setting. I know InDesign has it. Probably Illustrator now too. Hard to keep up with all of the Adobe products. They seem to change every year. Which is good. I mean, a lot of new stuff coming out.
So I'm just treating Joe's forehead like a big, I don't know, balloon or a sphere right now. Just modeling light to dark in a very broad way. Yeah, just thinking about the big shapes overall first, and I just want to paint those and painting over some of the details and lines, but I can still kind of see them, the lines that I have down there. I don't want to cover them up entirely, of course. So I'll go back down and, refine the eyes a little bit. But I always like starting with the forehead. It's a good, safe place to start in a painting.
It's your safe place.
It's my safe space. Yeah.
So Butch Curry was nice enough to give you the shortcut if you do want to see about the gamut warning. It'll tell you what colors don't work, basically. Do you want to try it?
Yeah, you know, I do remember doing this a long time ago. I think when I first learned Photoshop. It's just striking a bell.
Control-Shift-Y.
Let me save here.
Yes, please save.
Okay. Control-Shift-Y. Nothing happened. Should I see anything happening?
Doesn't show anything on your color picker?
No. What if I do like an out of gamut color? Like, did I just decide to like paint it just like right here? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so I used this bright orange, and it turned into a gray color. So it's like the gray, I guess, is the warning color. Like I'll choose a bright green now. Yeah, so there's a green, and then the green is all grayed out. You see that? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's cool. So yeah, it might be a good idea though to pick maybe a, I don't know, a really different color than gray. I don't know.
I'm sure you can change that in
Yeah.
your preferences.
Well, although I guess it would only really, the gamut warning probably only goes off if you try to paint a really bright color. So I guess if it does come out gray, then you know something's wrong. Okay, can I turn it off by just hitting Control-Shift-Y again?
You should be able to.
Okay. Because I'll probably forget and I'll be like, what's happening? Why is it gray?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so back to normal. But yeah, that's a good tip. Thank you for that. Jim, right?
No, that was from Butch.
Oh, that's
Curry.
from Butch, okay. Butch, really? I don't see a Butch on. Oh, yeah, there's Butch. Butch Curry, yeah.
That's because you're really not supposed to be looking at the chat while you're drawing.
I know.
That's why I'm here. Right?
Yeah.
So Alfred is asking if we are partaking in Mailbox Mayhem.
Well, we're getting one because, as you may know, Debbie is the editor, art director of Exaggerated Features, and was involved somewhat in the putting. Weren't involved in the putting together of the box. Well, we're going to get one though, right?
I am going to get one. For those not in the know, Exaggerated Features is the quarterly publication of the International Society of Caricature Artists. And I am the editor, art director. Basically, I'm the person who lays it out, gets all the articles together, and makes it happen.
And what is the Mailbox Mayhem exactly?
So this year, since the actual convention, which would have been in Reno, of course, cannot happen because of COVID, we are doing an online event. Basically, everyone that registered is getting a box in the mail if they registered for the box, and that box has a bunch of fun goodies in it. Like, I don't know if I can say, actually. So
Yeah, I probably can't say exactly
Yeah.
what's in there. But so is that linked to the online happenings going on as
It
far as like the
is.
Discord event?
it is. I think, I'm not positive, but I think you can still register for the Mailbox Mayhem. It's just, it's too late to actually get the box. But I think you can register if you want to at least partake in the online events that are going on.
Yeah, so basically we're having an online version of the caricature convention with, I mean, there's going to be drawing jams, right? Are there going to be private seminars and things?
Yes, there will be seminars, there will be how-tos, so just like the regular convention, except that we're not all in a room together drawing, but there will be a Discord room. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to play out because I wasn't in on all the
I
meetings.
saw
but
Tom Ferracci did an announcement for everybody on Facebook about how the Discord was going to work. Did you see that? He made a little video. So where can people go to find out more information if they want to participate? And when is it? Is it like next weekend?
You know, let me double check because I'm having trouble with dates.
You shouldn't be dating anyone. You're married to me.
Ha ha. No, COVID has really put my internal clock and calendar in a tailspin. So let me double check.
Yeah, I probably should have talked about this in previous streams, like advertised a little bit for ISCA, but if you've ever wanted to go to one of the ISCA caricature conferences, this is sort of the next best thing. It's kind of like Comic-Con was open to everybody this year, and they had online events, and people that couldn't go to Comic-Con could sort of get a taste of it. And while it's definitely not the same thing, you can do a lot of the same things, get a lot of the same information, hang out with people that you've heard of, other famous artists, or artists that you just like. Shiny says, COVID has put the brakes on Debbie. Debbie's dates.
Well, that's for sure. I haven't done much of anything this year. I did go to the desert a couple of weeks ago, but we can't talk about that.
Very secret.
Went to Howl at the Moon. No, I think was there a full moon when we went?
The full moon was on Halloween.
Oh, that's right. That's right. One cool thing about the desert, well, several cool things, but one, there aren't many people there. So social distancing is very simple. And two, you can see the stars, which isn't as easy to do where we live.
I mean, you can see the Milky Way out there,
Yeah.
the actual shape of our galaxy.
So the website for Mailbox Mayhem is mailboxmayhem.com. I'm still not sure if people can register at this point. It is happening starting the 15th, going through the 20th, but let me double check. I will text the president. He's usually pretty good about getting back with me, so I should have an answer by the end of the stream.
The president of ISCA, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. Not the current president of the United States. I doubt he would answer my text.
So I switched over to a little harder brush here. I was using the Velvet, I think the Velvet round brush, for a while. And that's just really soft, and it gets, it's good. It helps to create nice soft blended tones without being overly soft and airbrushy, but if you use it too much, it definitely can get that airbrushed look, which I don't like. So I like to get harder edges and shapes into the painting as soon as I can. Otherwise, you might tend to get too delicate and precious with the painting because it's very soft everywhere and you don't want to put anything hard in, any hard edges. But hard edges really are what make a painting work, I think, or a drawing. A nice balance between hard and soft edges. And of course, like usual, I'm just eyeballing the colors, so they're not going to be exactly as accurate as you might see in the photo, but it's kind of not the point. It's about creating interesting colors that make a statement. And the fact that I'm not selecting colors from the photo reference means that I'll be able to make Joe and Kamala look like they fit into this world a little bit better because I'm using my own individual color judgment. I'm not going off of some, I'm not going off of what the individual photos because they appear different in these different photos. Their lighting is slightly different, and I think it would be a little incongruous if I were to copy, so many of the colors from the reference photo from each one. Even though they have different skin tones, there will just be a slight, it's just noticeable. It would look off.
So Alfred is wondering if you ever draw traditionally anymore. It seems like you do a lot of computer drawing.
So much of what I do, my work is definitely digital because it's faster and I can paint fairly fast in it and make edits on the fly for clients. And of course, for this live stream, it's a lot easier for you guys to see what's going on. When I do I have done, of course, as you probably know, traditional demos here for the live streams, but I have to use the bad camera on my face, and the camera overlooking my shoulder is a good camera, but the angle is never quite right. But I definitely will do more traditional demos. I think it's definitely good to see because I like working traditionally. I like working in inks. I love working in watercolors and oil paintings. If I ever get around to doing an oil painting demo, we'll see. But it's just so easy. I can just sit down here on the live stream. Everything's set up to work digitally. I don't have to do a lot of fuss. To set up for a traditional media stream, I have to bring all this other equipment into the room, put a weighted tripod behind me with a counterbalanced boom so the camera doesn't tip it over. And so there's a lot to do with that one. And I put these lights that sort of shine equally, like in my eyes and on the board. Definitely not easy to do a traditional media live stream, and I'm lazy.
So guess what?
What?
I have an answer from Tom Faraci, the president of ISCA, already.
Great.
Told you, he's good. So you can still register if you want. You will not get a box at this point. But just go to caricature.org/mailbox mayhem. Or you can go to mailboxmayhem.com and the address will be there. When you go to register, it will tell you where the new address is.
All right.
So hopefully some of you will join. We'll love to see you. Virtually, of course. Stop reading the chat. I'm right here.
Okay.
I see you.
Well, feel free to tell me anything, even if it's not a question, if it's just a comment.
I was going to.
Okay.
Do you want me to tell you now what people are saying?
Yeah.
They're talking about you, Court.
Yeah. I love when people talk about me.
The ego. Hello Shiny was talking just about people celebrating in the streets, how surprised she was. But she also said she'd love to see you sketch with a normal pencil and use a normal eraser. She thinks the lines look better in traditional media.
Yeah, I agree. There's a certain kind of sloppiness that even I fall victim to when working digitally, because I know I can just cover things up really super easily and paint over anything. When working with any traditional paints, even, I paint a lot more carefully because there are more consequences, to having to fix things the more that you, more sloppy that you are. So yeah, you definitely have to be more conscious of what you're doing when working traditionally, and it compels you to do a different style of drawing, which is good, I think, because it forces you to be a little bit more on the ball. I do try to stay on the ball when I'm working digitally, but yeah, it's like super easy and fun to kind of paint messy and then paint back over it.
So I have another question for you. This one from Sabode. Do you think painting first in grayscale and then adding colors on top is a good way to go? Or changing the layers mode to color?
No, I've done it, but I don't advocate it. You can. So it's a mixed bag. Like if you maybe noticed, I think I did Kamala with grayscale, didn't I, the other week? Can't remember. But I do sometimes do that as a method of demonstrating. Like if I just want to do a good quick painting and just keep it grayscale, and then you can shift the colors to make it into a color painting. However, I don't think that's a great method to work overall, like all the time, because it creates that sort of tinted historical photo look, especially if you just rely on the tinting. You know how like when people colorize old black and white photos by hand painting them or doing it digitally, it just has a weird look. It's because the values and colors aren't sort of harmonizing and working with each other. So everything has, I don't know exactly technically what's causing that look, but it has that look, and it doesn't look like, there's usually less color variation when people do that. Like when I paint in color from the start, I'm painting with all sorts of colors along the way. I'm painting with blues and greens and purples and reds and browns and, muted shades of all those colors. However, when you do a black and white painting and then just tint color into it, usually people don't tint with as much conscious thought as they do as when they spend 2-3 hours painting in colors, because a lot of happy accidents occur normally when you paint in colors. And then, if you do that black and white method first and then start tinting it, people then tend to not spend as much time on the color part. And it's natural because you like, oh, you already spent all this time rendering it in black and white. I'm not going to spend another 2 or 3 hours painting color on top of it again. Well, you probably should. So whenever I do that method, whenever I start in black and white and then I tint it, I'll only tint the black and white grayscale painting for a little bit. I'll only tint it colors for just like really quick, and then I'll switch again to opaque paints, and I'll start painting opaquely on top of it, choosing new original colors and not relying on the color brush or the multiply brush or whatever brush it is that you're using. And that helps prevent or falling into the trap of looking like one of those old colorized photos. So yeah, if you do that, I think it's all right. But otherwise, you get a weird look.
Yeah, Butch Curry says that Marco Bucci has a good video on how to do that and why you should not do it.
Yeah. Yeah, people get intimidated by colors, but you really shouldn't. As long as you follow my easy 4-step process from my color live stream. No, I did.
Do you have that?
Well, yeah, I did. Back over the summer, I did a color live stream, or late spring. So definitely go look for that. I think I put a lot of decent information in there in like the first 20 or 30 minutes. And
Only 4 steps, really?
well, I'm joking. It's like,
Oh.
yeah, it's like an infomercial style. But I mean, there is really just a couple key facts about colors you should know and about how to control it. And then like this one exercise you should do, basically creating the HVC color wheel, the hue value chroma wheel. And that will help you understand how to work with color just by doing that one simple exercise. It just teaches you how to think about and how to approach color, and it's fairly simple. I don't want to go into it right here, but yeah, look for my live stream on color theory.
So Alfred has a question. He is participating in Mailbox Mayhem, so I don't know if this applies to that, but he is asking, what digital medium would you recommend for first-time users?
Whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, I started digital painting in Photoshop because that's all I had at the time. Because I started in, I took classes in the late 90s, and we did a little bit of digital painting then. But it was fairly basic, and I didn't really know what I was doing because I didn't really have any traditional art training at that point, really. At least not any good art training. And then, yeah, I just stuck with Photoshop because that's the one I knew, and that was the main program that was available. But today, there's a lot more user-friendly and cheaper options out there. I mean, there's programs like Krita, I think, which are like open source versions of Photoshop.
That's free.
It's free,
isn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah. But I've never used it. I don't know if it's like super stable or if it taxes your system. I mean, I don't know a lot about it. And then, of course, all the iPad Pro apps, like Procreate, Sketch Club, Sketchbook Pro, Manga Studio,
Adobe Fresco.
Yeah, there's so many options. So just whatever you can afford and whatever you have on hand already, start with that. So if you already have like an iPad, start with iPad painting apps. But if you have a PC and if you have Photoshop, I mean, I just like Photoshop because it's so controllable. You can control the factors and control the variables, build brushes exactly the way you want. I use Corel Painter a lot in my professional work, but I don't like it for, when I'm doing like quick sketch caricatures of people because it has great tools for that. However, I feel it's a little more chaotic and harder to control, so I don't like using Painter for my fine studio work. People do, it's just a matter of learning it, being comfortable with the materials and with the program. But I just don't, want to because I've put so much time and investment in my life learning Photoshop that I'm perfectly happy with this.
So I would say if you are starting from scratch, which you may be, I would definitely say go with an iPad. It's the cheapest choice. Not only that, it's easy to use, and there are lots and lots of tutorials online to get you started and up and going. And in that same vein, I would recommend Procreate for the same reason. Not very expensive, a lot of tutorials out there, and very easy to use. Ready for your next question?
Sure.
So Alan is asking, when researching your subject matter, what importance do you give in investigating their psychological profile?
Not much. I mean, that's none of my business. what their psychological profile is. I mean, unless I'm really, really invested in the subject for whatever reason, for a personal reason, I'll like do a lot of research in that case. But it's usually just for the purposes of like getting unstuck. Like if I'm having trouble figuring out what to do, like what kind of gag to do, what my editorial statement is about the person, that's usually why I do my research. But if I'm already motivated to draw and paint somebody, you know, like a major political figure, I probably already have some good opinions on them, and some strong opinions, I should say, or just a way of depicting them that I think will be cool or fun. I mean, sometimes I draw people just because I'm intrigued by them and their story, and that's kind of rare. I don't do that as much anymore, but I happened across, like, this is like maybe back in 2005 or 6, right after like Futurama, the TV series was canceled. I really liked it. I discovered just like, I was like, yeah, I heard about a revival. Are they going to bring it back? So I was just Googling it, and I saw a link to someone, a real person with the name Farnsworth. You know, there's a character named Professor Farnsworth. And it turns out it was based on a real guy. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Who's this guy? Philo T. Farnsworth, the inventor of television. I'm like, what? And he invented it in like 1914. He was just like a farmer, a Mormon farmer growing up in like Utah. And he was plowing the fields, and he was thinking about the problem of electronic television, because there were some people working on it at the time. Because motion pictures had been around for a while, but they wanted to figure out how to transmit pictures electronically. And there were things going on with like rotating mirrors and things. And there was a lot of attempts at the time. But he thought about this idea of using like an electron gun to scan back and forth because of the plowing he was doing in the fields, going back and forth, creating the furrows or the rows, I don't know what you call them. And he's like, you know what, you can scan an image that way and reproduce it that way on like a phosphorescent surface. And he was in high school at the time, and he drew it on a blackboard to show his science teacher, and the science teacher like didn't know what he was talking about, but the science teacher saved the blackboard. And Philo Farnsworth ended up getting into research. He got his own lab and started working on television. And it took him like 20 years, but he invented it. And there was a patent case that came up when RCA was trying to claim they invented TV. But what they did was they actually sent somebody to Philo's lab, this Italian researcher, and it was trying to develop TV for RCA. And Philo was just really friendly and showed him all of his work and his research, and it really helped them in their development of television. But there was like a patent case, a court case, and the Philo ended up calling on his old high school teacher who still had the blackboard, and they brought that in as evidence to show, yeah, he invented this back in like 1914 or 1919 or wherever, and he won his case.
He kept the blackboard?
He kept the blackboard because it was such a revolutionary idea that his student had that, yeah.
What?
Yeah, it's an amazing story.
So I guess he just went and bought a new blackboard and saved that one?
I don't know, I guess.
That just seems really bizarre.
Yeah. So television was basically around in like the 1920s, but it didn't, I mean, it worked, but it wasn't commercially viable yet. And they worked on it more in the 30s. They're trying to figure out how to make it more practical, get the picture size, the resolution up. And but then the Depression and then World War II happened. But before it did, at the 1939 World's Fair, RCA unveiled television to the world. And people were amazed by it. And it was part of, what was it? It wasn't in, I think RCA it was in a pavilion. And this is where my story gets a little confusing. But basically there was a pavilion about the world of tomorrow. And it was called, at the fair, it was called Futurama. And you got on this little cart and it showed you like what the city of tomorrow would look like. There was a display about television and all this new technology coming out. So that was kind of the inspiration, or one of the reasons that the creators of the cartoon Futurama used Farnsworth as the name of one of the characters, which is a nice tribute, I think. Anyway, I like stuff like that. So when I got down that rabbit hole, I ended up spending a lot of time, and I'm like, okay, I got to do a caricature of Philo Farnsworth. And I used to have it on my website, but I took it off because it's not a great caricature. Maybe I'll show it to you next week.
So Hello Shiny is asking what free program on the iPad is good for live caricatures. And I would say there really is not a free program on the iPad that I would recommend for live caricatures. But the good thing is all of them cost under $10 pretty much. Procreate, Sketch, I think, Sketchbook, Sketch Club, they're all under $10 US.
Yeah, which is a great deal. I mean, considering Photoshop, we pay, you know, $50 a month for the Adobe
forever
for the suite. And you know, I have a single Photoshop account on my laptop or on my tablet computer that I pay like $10 a month for, that renews every month. So yeah, so $10 one-time payment for a really good painting app like that is a really good deal. Definitely worth the investment.
Yeah, in Photoshop, it's $50 per user.
Per user, yeah.
But that's if you get the entire suite.
Yeah. Don't forget, most people's teeth are not perfectly white, especially as they retreat into the shadows of the corners of the mouth. And that's what the thing that makes teeth look really shiny and wet is when you have that nice contrast of darks and lights. And you want to reserve the brightest white highlights for just those shiniest reflections on the teeth. And Joe does have pretty white teeth. I mean, they're obviously, I think they're caps. They got to be caps or veneers because they're just so perfect. Although it looks like he only has the first like 1, 2, 3, 4, like the first 5 or 6 teeth on either side, because after that it looks like his teeth almost kind of disappear into his mouth, as if he might not have back teeth.
Yeah, you don't need them.
They kind of help in chewing.
Gum it.
So I'm still in a pretty rough stage of the painting here, and that's just how it is, unfortunately. I mean, or not unfortunately, just the way it is. You can paint with a little more finesse and delicacy and refining things as you go, but I kind of like to, generally I like to paint over the entire face all at once. You know, I just jump around, bringing up everything all together. And then at a certain point, I will focus on just a, you know, small area to refine that, like maybe the ear or the eye. The eye is usually a good place to start refining your focus. But first, I just want to get a nice range of colors on the face. That's, you know, I don't want it to be too monochromatic, so I want to get some cooler tones in here. And then eventually I'll stop using the color picker on the right side here. I'll just sample colors around from the face because I'll have everything I need within this face, and I can just use the eyedropper tool to pick up a color here and put it over there, and that will help with the overall color harmonies because every color I pick on the face occurs everywhere else in the face. Sort of like a holographic approach to the face, to painting colors, where every little bit exists in every small iota. See, like under the bags under the eyes are a little purplish, and I might exaggerate that color too a little bit.
So Nathan mentioned Sketchbook is free now. And I went and looked. It says it's free, but I swear the last time I sent someone to go download it, they said they could not download it for free. So I am perplexed.
Well, they might be having a promotion or something.
Well, the website actually says it's free for everyone. I wonder if that's a pandemic thing or that was in April. I don't know. I've had it for so long. I think I got it free when I subscribed to something else. So, but I never use it. This is someone, Hello Shiny says she loves Kamala's double chins. Did you give her double chins?
Well, I mean, yeah, a little bit. I wouldn't call them double chins necessarily, but just wrinkles in her.
I think it's skin. I mean, she's
area.
56. She should have some wrinkles,
Yeah.
I would hope. I mean, being California, sometimes people don't have wrinkles and it just looks very strange. I have another question for you from Jim.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on making the colors in the background and the flesh tones work well together?
Um, the flesh tones. Oh, with the background or the backgrounds of the flesh tones.
With the background.
You
Do
don't
you want me to
know.
read that again?
Yeah, read it again.
Do you have any tips on making the colors in the background and the flesh tones work well together?
I mean, it's just one of those things where you know it when you see it. And honestly, just about any color works. I mean, you can have a intense, bright, pure red in the background, but the stronger the colors you have in the background, it's just going to create more of a contrast, which you may want or you may not want. So if you don't want that, that's not a good idea. If you want that, that is a good idea. And if it's just maybe sometimes like I've seen sketches done, digital grayscale sketches done of a subject where they do have a bright colored background, and it's kind of nice to see that it's different. It's you don't necessarily have to have a grayscale background if you're doing a grayscale painting. It's just a matter of preference, really. As long as the subject, well, not you see, that's not even a rule. I was going to say as long as the subject stands out from the background and has contrast, that's good. But that's not always necessarily maybe what you want. You might want the subject to blend into the background. However, some element needs to pop out. Like I'm thinking of John Singer Sargent, who would paint a portrait of a person with dark hair up against a dark background that blends into their hair, so you can't really see much of a difference between the hair and the background. But the face is very brightly contrasted because it's brightly lit. And that works great too. And you can just sort of imagine where the hair is. Or maybe there's a highlight in the hair, a very low highlight that's just in the right place that makes you aware of where the rest of the head is. So you can do stuff like that if you want to blend it into the background. You still have to have something with some contrast. But generally, yeah, contrast of value I think is more important than anything relating to the color. Now, if you're going for harmony, where you really want things to look like they're in the same universe in a realistic space, that's another goal entirely. So I paint a lot of people with just an abstract color background. But if you want like a realistic background or a background where it looks like they belong in the same world, the background and the foreground, you have to have some echoed colors. You have to have some, if you have reds in the background, you got to have some reds in the face. Not necessarily the exact same red or the same intensity of red, but it has to be, you have to repeat colors throughout the composition if you want harmony. So that's my long answer. Color always is a long answer when people ask a color question. That's okay though.
You mean it's not just 4 simple steps?
Well, if you know the 4 simple steps, you don't necessarily need to ask the question because you already know the answer.
Oh.
And I'm joking about the 4 simple steps. I just pulled that number out of my butt. It's not really about its steps anyway. It's just, it's just a funny thing to say.
And you're just planning on leaving this background white anyway, right?
Yeah, for this one, definitely. White is a good, safe, neutral choice. It just represents negative space, an abstract space where you can, sort of like the Matrix loading program, where it's just a white background. You can sort of apply any environment in your imagination that you want. But it's really more just about focusing the action on the figures and what it is they're doing. And it's a time saver. I'm still using the same brush I've been using for like a while now. It's the Laguna Filbert brush. But let's go switch over now to a textured brush, just the Laguna brush with a canvas grain attached. Ooh, that's the wrong value. So this will give me a little bit more of a natural look.
So I have nothing to look forward to because you're not making me lunch today.
I made you a fancy dinner last night.
Yes, Court made tandoori chicken for the first time, and it was really good.
Yeah. Of course, I didn't use the right cut of chicken meat. I used the breasts, and I was supposed to use the thighs and legs.
Oh well.
It's pretty good though. Maybe I'll try to make you something this afternoon. Now that you publicly shamed me.
Haha. So have you pulled back on the entire composition recently?
Not recently. But I was just about to move over to another part of the composition. I just wanted to maybe get a little twinkle in Joe's eye here. Yeah, okay, let's zoom out a little bit. I don't know, what do people want to see me paint next? I could paint the hands, I could paint the clothes, I can paint the metal, reflective metal on the drain plug. Let me know, actually, until I hear back. Maybe until I hear from people, I'll continue working on Joe here. But if there's anything you want to see me, any part of it you want to see me paint, let's hear you.
While those are coming in, I have a question from Hello Shiny. Is there a digital brush that gives the weighted lines and line variation you'd get from a normal soft pencil or charcoal pencil, where when you hold the pencil at a different angle, the line changes?
Well, that depends on your device and the software.
Do you have one in your brush pack?
I don't think I have angle jitter turned on any of them, because you have to choose either pressure or angle, but not both. So I find it's better to have a pen that responds better to that responds more to pressure than angle or tilt. But I mean, if you want like a calligraphy brush, maybe that might be good to have pressure. The thickness set to the angle rather than to the pressure, and that's just a setting, under brush settings here. Where is brush settings? In other programs, I don't know where you'd find it, or if they have that level of control. I think you can have tilt control or angle control on the Apple Pencil.
Yeah, actually, on a lot of the Procreate brushes or pencils, if you use the side of the pencil, the tip of the pencil, and like turn it, it'll give you like a broad stroke, just like you're using a sharpened pencil.
Yeah, if you just want to change it though here, like say I wanted to make this a calligraphy brush, I wouldn't use this particular brush for it, but right now my size jitter is set to pen pressure. Just choose pen tilt. And you can see the cursor changes a little bit here with me tilting the pen. This is like perfectly upright. I don't know if you can see down here the little cursor in the bottom lower right. And then I tilt it, and then it becomes a sort of a longer brush stroke. So yeah, and then you would just save that as a new preset. And if you want to take any of my brushes, and like I do have an inking brush, I don't think that's what you were after, but that's where you could definitely use more of a calligraphy approach. Or you can set the size or the angle to the initial direction, so like a horizontal direction as opposed to a vertical direction, and then you'll get a really like you're holding a calligraphy pen. But I mean, that's a whole other subject.
Yeah, I think she put more description in there. I think she's actually just doesn't like working with digital stuff.
Well,
because of the feel.
Well, one of my favorite painting programs and tools in a painting program is made by a company. The app is called Infinite Painter. And just because of the one brush they developed, and it's just coincidentally called the Proco brush. I mean, it's not coincidental. I mean, they built it off of Stan Prokopenko's charcoal pencil. But it does an amazing job at recreating a real charcoal pencil, and it's for the iPad. And you can do, if you use the pen on its tip, you'll get a thin line like you would with a real charcoal pencil. And if you use it on its side, you get a really broad, nice, shaded stroke. And it's the best recreation of a charcoal pencil I've ever seen on a painting app. And there's a lot of great features in Infinite Painter. There's like really cool perspective assists that you can do, and modify the perspective after you've already drawn, like in ellipse. You can change the whole thing and constrain your strokes to a perspective, and they'll still have like brush control, like thin and thick. I don't know. It's just, I mean, I barely know the program at all, but I saw it at Lightbox last year, and I was like, oh man, I got to download that. And they did help. I mean, they didn't develop it with Stan, but they did sort of get his approval on it before they launched it. And it really looks like a charcoal pencil. So that's good for recreating the look of natural drawings, if that's what your thing is. But any votes on our, what they want to see me paint next?
Sorry, but very low voter turnout this time. Looks like Dorian was the only voter. Come on, you guys.
What did Dorian say?
Hands.
Hands, okay.
So hands it is.
Yep, if no one else votes.
Wait, yep. Just that's the only one I see.
Cool. So I'm just going to take the colors from Joe's face and just paint those on the hand. The underside of the hand is generally a little bit lighter in value than the top of the hand. Maybe a little pinker too. But we don't really see the back of the hand here, maybe just around the edges somewhat. And I do not have any photo reference for this hand. I completely invented it out of the imagination, which is probably why it's a little wonky. But I'll sort of fix it as I work. I'm using the Velvet round brush right now, in case you're wondering.
Oh, we have a late vote for the plunger.
The plunger? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's kind of like a little still life object.
Maybe he was joking. Who knows? But thanks, Butch, for your late vote.
I'm constrained a little bit right now by that selection I had going. Just so you know, I still have the marching ants. They're just hidden. But I'm going to deselect the whole, that thing so I can paint outside. Because I was finding myself not able to paint the edges of the hand the way I wanted. It's not necessary to keep that selection active. It's just really to help you paint fast in the beginning so you don't accidentally go out of the lines.
Butch says he was joking. Okay. Hard to tell without any cute emoticons.
Mm-hmm. Just a little tip on fingers, literally about the tips. They're usually redder and pinker than the rest of the hand.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, just because of the blood flow or whatever.
And that's why oximeters work, by placing them on your fingertip.
Yeah. So I just basically coated the entire image, just sort of did a raw once over with some color. Now I'm going in and pulling out some of the darker areas of the hands. And you really should have hand photo reference. I just didn't get any ready. I usually take pictures of my own hands in the right position with the right lighting if I can't find it online. But I painted sort of enough, so I think I'm all right. I can handle it. In fact, both of these figures, head to toe, were created out of my imagination. I didn't use any photo reference. I'm not saying that to brag. It's just maybe actually to let you know why it's a little sloppy.
Well, I seem like we get a lot of people asking from time to time when you're going to do something from imagination. And you always say, no, I don't do that.
I do. Well, here you go. And oh, did I? I did not even. I didn't show the creation of this painting, did I? The time
No.
lapse. I totally forgot.
No, you did not.
Um,
When are you gonna do that?
shoot. Yeah, I wanted to do it at the beginning, but I got distracted with my political discussion, I guess. But let me go ahead and save this, and I'll just show a little bit of it. It's 5 minutes long. I don't want to take up the whole time, but we are getting towards the end of our time here. So yeah, sorry guys, I didn't show this earlier, but this is the creation of the painting. I started with Joe just as the thumbnail sketch. And by the way, I think your microphone's off for this part, just so you know. Yeah, just a really loose, quick thumbnail sketch that I didn't love, but I ended up just kind of refining it and refining it, tweaking it, just trying to make it work, figuring out, how to rebalance the head. As you can see here, I'm just making changes. I'm editing as I go. I'll take the lasso tool and redraw parts of it, and I skewed it a little bit there to fix the perspective. And at this part, I'm just doing a tracing of the face. Just tracing the thumbnail sketch and to make it a little more of a refined, rough sketch. But there's still a lot of editing to do. I still see things that are bothering me, so you'll see me resizing things, moving things around until it looks just right. But I only did one sketch of Joe. I was pretty happy. I didn't have to do several this time. I just took the one sketch that I started with and just worked it and reworked it until I was happy with it. So I flipped it in reverse to see any kind of errors or anything that was bugging me. And that can usually help you see what shapes are unbalanced or which shapes are, the perspective looks weird. Sometimes you can't see all those things when you're looking at it the right way around because you just get so used to seeing it, you get blind to the structural errors. So at this point, I'm basically done with the face, and I'm just making up the body. And at this point in this process, I didn't know what the gag was going to be. So I was just going to draw him in sort of a victory pose, just self-congratulatory. But I'm like, that's not very interesting. And I knew I was going to put Kamala in there, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took a little break and I don't know, I guess watched the news a little bit and figured out what I wanted to do with them. And here's Kamala. I just brought in that old digital quick painting that I did a few weeks ago and just added a body. Again, without any photo reference, just knowing I wanted to draw her in a pantsuit. But at this point, I'd figured out what I wanted to do. I figured out the drain the swamp analogy. And I thought, I'm not going to do a whole swamp because I want to keep it simple. And the idea of just quick symbols, quick, easy to understand, at a glance imagery. So I came up with the idea of the drain plug. And so that's basically it. There's a little bit more. I spend a little bit more time refining it. I'm just jumping ahead in the time lapse here. I'm just doing the tracing of the original sketch to make it look a little cleaner. And that's basically it. All right, so there we go. So that was the whole creation of that. I just wanted to show that in the beginning, and I totally forgot, so apologize for that. Anyway, back to our subject here. So I'm just grabbing colors from Joe's face that, just the portion of the face I can still see over here. Because I want the colors to match. Don't want to just start inventing colors for the hand. I did look at my own hand a bit, like at the studio. I was just holding it in different angles, trying to figure out how to do a waving hand at that right angle. And where the creases are on the palm. So this is basically my hand, just different proportions. And any sort of broken brush strokes or messiness that is in here, as long as it's basically in the right place, I think serves it well, because it just looks like, an older gentleman's hand. Just extra brush strokes can go a long way to help define some of the shapes and suggest age. If this was a young woman's hand or a young child hand, it would be probably more finely rendered, a little smoother.
Even if it was an older woman's hand?
Yeah, if it was an older woman, well, if I wanted to show that, sort of caricature her age a little bit, yeah, I would definitely heighten the effect.
Is my mic on?
Yes.
Okay. I have a question from Hello Shiny.
What's
Doesn't really pertain to what you're doing now, but she was wondering if you would ever do a streaming on drawing an avatar or drawing a cartoon portrait face for online profile pics. Is that something you would do?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, you see a lot of these, apps. I don't know if Facebook has one right now where you create your own cartoon avatar. I mean, those have been going around for a while, and they bug me. They never look like the person, and it's not necessarily due to the fact that the person doesn't draw. I know some caricature artists that have been using them, and they know how to do caricatures of themselves. It's just the tools are so limited with those, as far as the face shapes you can get and how much you can customize the figure, or how much you can customize the faces.
Thank goodness they're bad.
Yeah, because they are kind of competition for us, like someone will want to, if they don't have any other options, they'll come into a real caricature artist, hopefully, and commission some artwork if they want a cartoon avatar. But there's so many of those ones that are, we can generate just with an app or something that people think are just fine and dandy, but they're just awful. They make me sad.
Yeah, I actually have someone who commissioned me to do an avatar.
Yeah.
Because they didn't like the ones they were getting. So.
Yeah, and people, that definitely is a good place where an artist can make some money is doing avatar pics for people. Just you make that, part of put it on your Instagram or whatever, or make a little, a website with a store on it and market it as such, like market it as, hey, get your cartoon avatar drawn, use it on all your social media. And, because you are competing with these free apps, you can't really charge too much, but if you can do them quickly for people, you might be able to make a good, make some decent money doing it on the side or something when you have free time. Yeah, I don't know when AI is going to replace caricature artists. I think it's still a long way off. Because it's what we do is really a machine. It's so hard for a machine to learn to do what we do as well as how we can do it. And every artist has their own style. And if everyone's using the same avatar generating cartoon app, everyone's artwork is going to look like it was drawn by the same robot. And that's no fun.
But what if they come up with plugins just like different brushes where it will give, a different emotion or feeling to the AI?
That's, that could be out there, anything in this world, anything will end up replacing, there's no job basically that's safe in this world from automation or from world circumstances. So it's good to be flexible. It's good to be multidisciplinary, to have your, have options, because as you may have found, a lot of you, like we found, we have non-essential jobs. Drawing entertainment at parties is something that doesn't really work in a pandemic. So we have to have other things to keep you afloat, other things that can generate income.
The last thing you want to be is obsolete.
Yeah. So it's, if you do online avatars for people, that's just one more thing you can do, but don't make that your only thing. Don't put all your eggs in that basket. Because, yeah, someone may come out with an app tomorrow that really does a really good job of drawing people's caricatures. So anyway, that's kind of, the basics on the hand there. I didn't really talk about it too much. I just kind of did it. And I wouldn't call it an anatomical study by any means. It's just kind of how I get away with painting cartoon hands. If I zoom back out, it looks relatively believable. It has kind of a strong outline around it still, which maybe it looks a little artificial because of that, but Joe still has an outline around his face too. It's the line art layer that's still there. I can maybe eat away at that a little bit. But a subtle outline doesn't bother me too much. I kind of like it sometimes. Rockwell would even do that in a lot of his work. He'd keep a very, very subtle, warm, brownish purple outline that you can see on some of his original works. And they do a lot of the heavy lifting of the painting, actually, especially when a subject is up against a white background. It really helps them pop them off, and you don't pop them off the background, and you don't necessarily notice it's there until you get close enough. But when it's shrunk down for print, it just acts as a just that little extra touch that makes the painting's contrast like just really catch the eye and separates them from the background. Okay, looks like I just have like a minute or two left here. If there's any other questions I didn't get to, let me know. Anything interesting, Debbie, that we missed?
Not that I saw. I could have missed something, but I don't think so.
Yeah, if I didn't answer any of your questions or something, let me know in the next minute or so.
I don't know if you talked about the weather, but for California, we are having a nice, cloudy, rainy Sunday.
Yeah, loved it. It was rainy and cold yesterday, and it's just been such a nice change from, the really hot summer we had. I'm actually wearing a long sleeve shirt, and I love it. We don't get a lot of cold, rainy days. I mean, during the winter, it's pretty mild and temperate, but we haven't had it for a while, so we miss it.
Yeah, whoever says it never rains in Southern California is wrong.
Yeah, but it barely rains. We haven't, aside from yesterday, we haven't had measurable rain in San Diego since April.
Yeah.
That's just how it is here. It's sort of a semi-arid region. Okay, so yeah, it's in a pretty rough state still, and I barely got a start on it. But it's coming along, and I definitely plan on finishing this, whether it's on camera or off, I don't know, but I'll update you with it in the coming weeks, how I'm moving along on this, because it is pretty current. This is current events here, and I want to strike while the iron's hot, and I don't want to wait 2-3 months to post this because the election's over, and this is basically an election caricature. I would like to post it on social media while it's still relevant. Yeah, that's it for now, I guess. If you have any additional questions or suggestions for future streams, you can leave them in the comments below. Feel free to leave a like if you liked the video, or even if you didn't like it, please leave a like. I don't know. And that's about it, I guess. Debbie, anything else?
No, I think we should wrap it up.
Okay. Thanks for joining me, guys. Be safe. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you soon.